Mia had always been the kind of girl who believed love could outweigh appearances. At 23 years old, she had been in a committed relationship with Ryan for nearly 3 years. He was her first real love, her anchor, her sense of safety in a world that often felt cruel and judgmental. She wasn't thin, she weighed close to 80 kilograms, but she carried herself with warmth, humor, and a kind of loyalty people search for their whole lives. Ryan had once told her that those things were worth more than looks. She believed him. But lately, small cracks had begun to show in their relationship. It wasn't sudden, like a switch flipping off, it was more like a dimming light bulb, flickering slowly toward darkness. Ryan had grown distant, less affectionate. He started going out more often with friends from work, staying late, dodging questions with vague answers. Mia tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in her stomach, convincing herself that he was just stressed, maybe tired, maybe overwhelmed. Until the truth finally came crashing down. One rainy evening, Mia's phone buzzed with a message from a friend. "I think you should see this." Attached was a picture taken at a bar nearby. Ryan, had his arm around a tall, slim brunette, her glossy hair spilling over his shoulder as she leaned in close. The way he looked at her, it was a look Mia hadn't seen directed at her in months. When he came home that night, she confronted him, her voice trembling, her hands ice-cold. Ryan didn't even bother denying it. "Mia," he said, sighing like she was a burden he no longer wanted to carry. "I don't know how to say this without hurting you, but I need something different. We've been together for a long time, and I feel like I've changed." "You've changed too." Her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. "So what, Ryan? You found someone prettier? Someone thinner? You just throw me away after everything?" He winced but didn't deny it. "It's not just about looks, but, yes, I want someone who takes care of themselves. You don't even try anymore." That was the knife that cut deepest. Because it wasn't true, she had tried. She had cooked healthy meals sometimes, promised herself she would join a gym, thought about changing. But she had also been comfortable, secure in the idea that love meant being accepted as she was. Now, standing in their apartment with tears streaming down her face, she realized how naive that had been. Ryan packed his things within days, moving on with the slim brunette while Mia was left surrounded by memories of a love that wasn't strong enough to last. The weeks that followed were suffocating. Mia cried herself to sleep almost every night. She stared into mirrors, hating the reflection that stared back at her. She avoided social media, terrified of stumbling upon pictures of Ryan and his new girlfriend smiling, laughing, glowing. Her friends tried to comfort her, but their words felt hollow. Maybe he was right, she thought in her darkest moments. Maybe I'll never be good enough. Maybe no one will ever want me the way I am. But somewhere in the depths of her despair, a spark began to form. She remembered the look on Ryan's face when he told her she didn't even try anymore. Rage bubbled up, mixing with pain. He had left her, humiliated her, replaced her. But he would not define her. One evening, after another round of tears, Mia dragged herself out of bed, wiped her swollen eyes, and opened her laptop. She searched for local gyms. Her heart pounded as she typed in her credit card information and signed up for a membership. She didn't know exactly what she was doing. She didn't know if she would succeed. But for the first time in weeks, she felt something different than grief. She felt determination. "This isn't the end of me," she whispered to herself in the dim glow of the computer screen. "This is just the beginning." And as she fell asleep that night, her pillow still damp from tears, Mia didn't dream about Ryan or the girl who replaced her. She dreamed about a new version of herself, one that was waiting on the other side of the pain. The version she would fight to become. The gym smelled of metal, sweat, and determination. Mia stood at the entrance on her first day, clutching her brand new water bottle, her heart pounding harder than any workout could make it. The mirrors lining the walls felt like a cruel joke, reflecting not just her body, but every insecurity she had carried for years. She adjusted her oversized t-shirt, tugging it down nervously over her leggings. Everyone around her seemed to know exactly what they were doing, fit bodies in tank tops, headphones in, weights clanging in rhythm like a secret language she didn't speak. For a moment, she considered turning around and walking right back out. What am I doing here? I don't belong in this place. Everyone's staring at me. But then she remembered Ryan's words, "You don't even try anymore." Her fists clenched. Watch me try. She approached a treadmill and stepped onto it, fumbling with the buttons. The belt whirred to life beneath her feet, and she began to walk. It wasn't much, but it was movement, and it was hers. The first week was hell. Her muscles screamed after every session. She was sore in places she didn't know existed. Sometimes she cried in the locker room, overwhelmed by how far she felt from where she wanted to be. She avoided the free weights area altogether, terrified of being judged by the muscular men who seemed to own that corner of the gym. But every morning, she pushed herself to go back. One step at a time. One drop of sweat at a time. By the second month, Mia started noticing small changes. Her clothes felt looser, her face slimmer. The scale dropped by a few pounds, but it wasn't just about the numbers anymore, it was the way she felt after finishing a workout. Stronger. Lighter. A little more in control of her life. Still, there were days when doubt crept in. She scrolled through social media, comparing herself to influencers with perfect bodies, flawless skin, sculpted curves. She wondered if she was chasing an impossible dream. On those days, she wrote in a journal. Not about weight or calories, but about feelings. I am not doing this for Ryan. I am doing this for me, she scribbled after a particularly rough session. It became her mantra. Months passed. The girl who once hid behind baggy clothes and excuses was slowly disappearing. Mia learned how to lift weights, watching tutorials, asking trainers for help. The first time she deadlifted, her hands shook, but the sense of power that surged through her body was intoxicating. She wasn't just shrinking, she was growing stronger. Her diet changed too. No more emotional binges at midnight, no more drowning pain in junk food. She cooked balanced meals, experimented with new recipes, learned to enjoy fueling her body instead of punishing it. There were setbacks, of course. Days when she skipped the gym, nights when she broke down and devoured a tub of ice cream. But instead of spiraling into shame, she learned to get back up the next day and keep going. One evening, nearly 8 months after her first visit, Mia caught her reflection in the gym mirror. She almost didn't recognize herself. Her face was sharper, her waist smaller, her arms toned. Sweat glistened on her forehead, and her eyes burned with a fire she had never seen before. For the first time in years, she didn't look at herself with disgust. She looked with pride. And yet, something deeper was happening. It wasn't just her body that was changing, it was her spirit. The girl who once begged for Ryan's love, who cried over his betrayal, was transforming into a woman who no longer needed validation from anyone but herself. Her friends noticed too. Compliments poured in, "You look amazing. What's your secret?" But what struck Mia the most wasn't the admiration in their eyes, it was the confidence in her own smile when she answered, "Discipline. Hard work. And believing I deserve better." One night, as she collapsed into bed after a grueling workout, her phone buzzed. A notification lit up the screen. A name she hadn't seen in months. Ryan. Her stomach tightened. She stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the message. "Hey. How have you been?" Mia's lips curled into the smallest, most dangerous smile she'd worn in years. She didn't answer. Not yet. Mia didn't reply to Ryan's message that night. Or the next day. Or the week after. She left it there, sitting unread in her inbox like a reminder of the life she had outgrown. But the truth was, seeing his name again ignited something inside her. Not longing, not sadness, but a kind of vindication. He was noticing her now. Even without words, the silence itself was a victory. By the time a full year had passed since Ryan had walked out of her life, Mia was no longer the same girl. The 80 kilograms she once carried were gone. She had shed more than just weight. She had shed the timidity, the self-doubt, the desperate need for approval. At 60 kilograms, toned and confident, Mia walked differently. She dressed differently. She smiled differently. People at the gym who once overlooked her now turned their heads when she walked by. Men who ignored her before now stammered trying to talk to her. But Mia wasn't doing it for them. She had promised herself that this was her journey, her rebirth. It wasn't just the gym either. She had invested in herself in every way. She went to therapy, healed the scars Ryan had left behind, and built a mindset of resilience. She learned to carry herself with pride, whether she was in leggings and sneakers or dressed up in a sleek black dress that hugged her new figure. And then came the surgery. It wasn't a decision she made lightly. She'd always wanted to feel more confident in her body, and after long talks with doctors and plenty of research, she decided to go through with breast augmentation. It wasn't about becoming someone else, it was about finally becoming the woman she had always envisioned in her mind's eye. The day she looked in the mirror after recovery, tears welled in her eyes. Not tears of regret or sadness, but of triumph. She had built this version of herself, piece by piece, rep by rep, choice by choice. Her friends hardly recognized her anymore. Old acquaintances did double takes when they bumped into her on the street. Even her family marveled at the transformation. Mia wasn't just beautiful now, she was magnetic. She radiated confidence, the kind of glow that came from surviving heartbreak and forging strength from pain. It was inevitable that Ryan would notice. It started with another message. Then another. Then phone calls she ignored. Finally, one day, she saw him waiting outside her apartment building, leaning against his car like he used to when they first dated. He looked nervous. She looked radiant. "Mia," he said, his voice almost a whisper when she walked past him. "You look incredible." She raised an eyebrow, her keys jingling in her hand. "Do I?" "I made a mistake," he blurted out. "The biggest mistake of my life. I thought. I don't know what I thought. But I miss you. I want you back." Mia laughed, not cruelly, but with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing your worth. "You miss me now? Now that I'm not the girl you left behind?" Ryan's face fell. "No, it's not just that. I realize now what I had. You were always amazing, and I was too blind to see it." But Mia wasn't moved by his words. She'd cried too many tears for this man. She had rebuilt herself from the ground up. She wasn't going to crumble just because he decided she was finally good enough. "You don't get to just come back into my life because you regret leaving," she said firmly. "I'm not the same girl anymore, Ryan. And I'm not looking for the same boy." She walked away, leaving him stunned in the parking lot. But Ryan didn't give up. He kept trying. Messages, flowers, invitations to dinner. Mia ignored them all. For months, she thought he'd eventually disappear. But he didn't. Instead, Ryan began to change. She saw it on his social media first. He joined a gym. He was running marathons. He'd lost weight, built muscle. He posted about reading books on self-improvement, about therapy, about becoming a better man. Mia didn't know what his motivation truly was, whether it was her or just himself, but she couldn't deny it, he was transforming too. And though she would never admit it out loud, a small part of her was curious. Ryan didn't vanish like Mia expected. He lingered. He chased. He worked. At first, she rolled her eyes every time another notification from him popped up. "I'm sorry. Please let me explain. Can we meet, just once?" She ignored them, her heart a fortress fortified by months of pain and growth. But then, she started noticing something. The man she once loved was beginning to look nothing like the boy who had broken her. His once sloppy appearance was gone, replaced by a sharper jawline, toned arms, a confidence that came from hours in the gym. His posts were no longer about parties and shallow fun, they were about discipline, commitment, bettering himself. And that made Mia pause. Not because she was ready to forgive him, but because she wondered if this transformation was real, or just another performance to get her back. One evening, nearly a year after her own transformation, Mia walked into her favorite cafe. It was late, the golden light spilling across wooden tables, the smell of fresh coffee wrapping her in comfort. She had just ordered her drink when she heard a familiar voice. "Mia." She turned. And there he was. Ryan. For a second, she didn't recognize him. He looked stronger, healthier, more grounded. His eyes lit up when they met hers, and his lips curved into a tentative smile. "I was hoping I'd run into you," he said, his voice steady but laced with nerves. Mia raised an eyebrow, taking her coffee from the barista. "Or maybe you've been waiting for me here." He chuckled softly. Guilty. She should have walked away. She knew it. But instead, she found herself sliding into a chair opposite him. She told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. "So," she said coolly, stirring her latte. "You've been very persistent." "Why?" "Because I was an idiot," Ryan said immediately. "I let the best thing in my life slip away because I was shallow and selfish. And I've regretted it every day since." Mia sipped her coffee, watching him carefully. "Regret is easy. Change is hard." His gaze didn't waver. "Then watch me prove it. I've been working on myself, not just to win you back, but because I couldn't stand who I was. I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But I'm not that man anymore." Mia leaned back, crossing her arms. "Words are cheap. You broke me, Ryan. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. Do you think flowers and apologies can erase that?" He shook his head. "No. I don't expect forgiveness overnight. I need you to know I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes." She studied him for a long moment, her heart warring with her mind. Part of her wanted to laugh in his face, to tell him he was too late. But another part, the part that still remembered the boy who once held her hand during thunderstorms, who once whispered dreams into her ear at night, hesitated. "You've got a long road ahead of you," she said finally, her tone sharp but not dismissive. "If you really mean what you say, you'll have to prove it. Not in weeks, not in months. For as long as it takes." Ryan nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. "Then that's what I'll do. However long it takes." From that day forward, he began his pursuit in earnest. Not desperate, not suffocating, but steady. He showed up at charity runs she participated in, not to impress her but to stand beside her. He joined volunteer projects she was involved in, rolling up his sleeves and working quietly without fanfare. He didn't just send her flowers, he sent her books he thought she'd love, with handwritten notes tucked inside. He didn't just text her compliments, he asked about her day, her dreams, her struggles. For 2 years, Ryan kept showing up. Consistently. Patiently. without pressure. And little by little, Mia's walls began to crack. One evening, after they had finished a late-night charity event together, Ryan walked her home. They stood outside her building under the glow of a street lamp, silence stretching between them. "You've changed," Mia said quietly, almost to herself. Ryan looked at her, his voice soft but sure. "So have you. And I like the woman you've become more than I can ever put into words." Mia's chest tightened, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. For the first time in years, she didn't look at Ryan and see the boy who broke her. She saw a man who had fought, not just for her, but for himself. And that scared her more than anything. Mia had never been a cruel person, but she wasn't naive anymore either. If Ryan wanted a place in her life, he would have to prove he wasn't the same man who had shattered her. And so, without fully realizing it, she began to test him. At first, it was subtle. She would cancel plans last minute, expecting him to get frustrated the way he used to. But instead of snapping, Ryan simply said, "No worries, we'll try again when you're ready." Then she'd bring up old wounds, the way he left, the words he used, the humiliation she endured. She expected him to deflect or defend himself. But instead, Ryan listened. Really listened. Sometimes he'd close his eyes as if forcing himself to relive the pain he had caused her, then say quietly, "I was wrong. You didn't deserve that. And I'll never forgive myself for it." It wasn't what Mia was used to. The boy she remembered would have gotten defensive, blamed her, or brushed it off. But this man standing before her wasn't running from accountability. He was standing in it. Still, trust was not something she could hand back so easily. One night, she invited him to join her and her friends at a dinner party. It was a small test, a way to see how he would fit into her new world, the confident, independent life she had built without him. To her surprise, Ryan blended in seamlessly. He laughed with her friends, asked questions, and never once tried to dominate the conversation. When Mia went to grab dessert from the kitchen, she overheard one of her girlfriends whisper, "Wow. He's nothing like you described. He actually seems good." The words rattled her more than she wanted to admit. Over the following months, Ryan continued to show up, not with grand gestures, but with consistency. When Mia caught the flu, he dropped off groceries and medication at her door, even though she insisted she could manage. When her car broke down, he was there within an hour, rolling up his sleeves to help. When she had a stressful week at work, he sent her flowers, not roses or clichés, but wildflowers, because he remembered once, years ago, that she said they reminded her of freedom. Mia found herself laughing with him again, something she hadn't realized she missed. She found herself watching the way his eyes softened when they looked at her, the way he carried himself differently now, not arrogant, but grounded. And yet, every time her heart leaned forward, her mind yanked it back. Can people really change? Or is this all just temporary? One evening, as autumn leaves painted the city streets gold and crimson, Ryan asked her to meet him at the park where they'd shared their very first kiss years ago. When she arrived, he was standing by the old oak tree, the one that had witnessed their beginning. In his hand was not a bouquet, not a gift, but a simple photo frame. Inside was a picture of them from their early days, smiling with the kind of innocence only young love could carry. "I keep this to remind myself of who I was back then," he said when she approached. "And of who I don't ever want to be again. I don't expect you to forget, Mia. But I want to show you that I've changed, not just for you, but because I needed to grow up." Mia's throat tightened. She hated how much his words got to her. "Do you think I can just erase the past?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No," Ryan said softly. "And I wouldn't want you to. The past is why I am who I am today. The only thing I can do is keep showing you, every day, that I'll never hurt you like that again." For a long moment, Mia stared at him, the autumn wind tangling her hair. Her heart ached with the weight of what she had endured, but it also fluttered with something she hadn't felt in years: hope. 2 years, Ryan, she whispered. 2 years of this. You've been patient. You've been different. But I need to know, are you in this forever, or until it gets hard again? His eyes didn't waver. Forever. I'm not here to borrow your heart. I'm here to earn it back. Mia's walls didn't crumble all at once. But that night, for the first time, she let him walk her home. For the first time, she let his hand brush against hers without pulling away. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder. What if this wasn't just a second chance? What if this was the real beginning? Winter arrived like a soft whisper, draping the city in silver frost. For Mia, the season always carried a certain symbolism, an ending, but also a quiet preparation for rebirth. This year, however, the chill in the air seemed different. Lighter. Warmer somehow, because Ryan had slowly become a constant presence in her life again. But the final choice was still hers. On Christmas Eve, Mia sat by her apartment window, staring at the lights twinkling across the city. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. Meet me outside. One last surprise for the year. Her heart thudded. She pulled on her coat and scarf, stepping into the crisp night. Downstairs, Ryan was waiting, not with flowers, not with empty promises, but with a small box in his hand. Not a ring. Something simpler. When she opened it, she found a silver key. It's to my place, Ryan said, his breath clouding in the cold. No pressure. No expectations. Just a sign that I'm done hiding, done running, done living halfway. I want you in every part of my life, Mia. But only if you're ready. Mia held the key tightly, her emotions a storm. This was the man who had once left her broken. This was the man who had walked back into her life, humbled, changed, and persistent. And this was the man who had spent 2 years proving that his words weren't just air. The choice should have been simple, but her heart still wrestled with fear. That night, she didn't give him an answer. Instead, she kissed him on the cheek, whispered Merry Christmas, and went back upstairs. Ryan didn't argue. He just smiled softly, as though he understood that she needed one more moment to decide. New Year's Eve came. Mia's friends begged her to go out, but she stayed home, restless, pacing, reflecting. She thought of the girl she used to be, the insecure, hesitant version of herself who had let someone else define her worth. She thought of the years she spent rebuilding, of the fire she found in herself at the gym, of the surgeries and transformations, of the late nights where she cried but still pushed forward. She realized then that the strongest thing she ever did was not change her body. It was learning that she deserved better. And now, standing at a crossroads, she understood, forgiving Ryan didn't erase the past. It honored the woman she had become. At 11:45 p.m., Mia put on her coat, grabbed the little silver key, and walked into the night. The city was alive with fireworks waiting to burst, and her footsteps echoed with purpose. When she reached Ryan's building, her hands trembled as she slid the key into the lock. The door opened. Ryan was inside, sitting on the couch with a book in his hand, looking stunned when she appeared. Before he could speak, Mia crossed the room and kissed him. Not a tentative kiss, but one that spoke of years of longing, forgiveness, and rediscovery. When they finally pulled apart, Ryan's eyes glistened. "Does this mean?" "It means," Mia interrupted, smiling through tears, "that I'm ready to try. Not because I need you. But because I want you. And because I believe in the man you've become." The clock struck midnight. Fireworks erupted outside, painting the sky in shimmering colors. Inside, Ryan pulled Mia into his arms, holding her as though she was the most precious thing in the world. For the first time in years, Mia didn't feel like a girl trying to prove herself. She felt like a woman who had chosen her future. The months that followed were not perfect, but they were real. They argued sometimes, they disagreed, they stumbled. But each time, Ryan showed her through actions, not words, that he was there to stay. He no longer saw her just as the girl he once dated, he saw her as his equal, his partner, his love. And Mia? She didn't see herself through the lens of comparison anymore. She wasn't the before version or the after. She was simply herself, strong, radiant, worthy. 2 years later, standing hand in hand with Ryan in front of their families and friends, Mia realized something profound. Love wasn't about never falling apart. It was about finding someone who would rebuild with you, brick by brick, even if it took years. When they exchanged vows, Ryan's voice cracked. "Thank you for giving me a second chance. I'll spend my life proving you were right too." Mia smiled, her heart full. The girl who once cried over being left had grown into a woman who chose her own ending. And this ending, against all odds, was a happy one.